3 of 3 of the hashtag IBB top 3
trilogy.
Oh yeah. So if you didn't check out video 1 or video 2, please go check that out. Some great stuff.
And they kind of build on today's.
And they build
too,
on today, so that's where you can come back and watch this as many times as you want.
Yeah.
But so I'm having a blast so far.
Yes,
This is
great.
good. We if it's not invented or copyrighted, we're officially copywriting right now. Leadership personality.
Right,
So
right.
what's your leadership personality? Okay, now that I derailed us, let's dive into your
Sure.
third key to success. And let's
All right, so let's just jump right into it. Third key to success that I think is so incredibly important is, and this is going to sound crazy,
Okay.
employ your command within its capabilities.
Employ your command.
So remember, this is all coming back to United States Marine Corps leadership principles.
Yes.
And being a Marine, I feel like I can use them and talk
Correct.
about them without fear of anything
So
going
can I
on.
pop quiz challenge you? So if I'm a non-military person,
Sure.
how do I translate employ your command within its capabilities?
That's a wonderful question.
All right, cool.
So that's why, honestly, that's why I really wanted to,
If my
to
brain's
talk
really
about
small,
this
can
one.
you help
Sure.
me out?
So employ your command within its capabilities. So that really builds on the first two, right? So my first two were know yourself and seek
Mhm.
self-improvement,
Yep.
and then know your people
Okay.
and look out for their welfare,
Yeah.
right? And so your command is your business, your family, your empire, your, whatever you want to call it.
Yes. Yes.
Your command includes yourself. So
Okay.
what you really need to do is understand your machine that you run, what are its capabilities, and the challenge then is to stay within your capabilities.
Okay.
And so
yeah.
And so the narcissist in me hears something like that.
I can do anything. Yeah.
and says,
yeah,
right, like,
yeah.
it sounds like a loser mentality,
Yeah.
like, why would I hold myself back?
Correct.
Right?
Was you? So yeah. So you're never okay. So
Go ahead.
narcissist. I think that like. Yeah, some people might say that we do that, but like just, but
I'm
to
perfectly
me, I'm
comfortable
like,
with the term
I am,
because-
dude, I am driven by the things people tell me I can't do.
100%.
Like, dude, I literally have a Post-it note
Yep.
in my car. This just literally says "doubt me."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
like for me,
Right.
like that's where I'm like, please
And that's
somebody doubt me.
super-
So and then that's gonna
Right,
motivate
right.
me.
And that's a
times
super
million.
narcissistic tendency, but that term narcissist has
Yeah.
such a like negative vibe to it or
Yeah,
whatever, but it
I
shouldn't
hear
be.
it's a bad thing.
Right,
You know?
I don't know, I don't
well,
think it
definitely
is.
people like anything people
Right.
take to the
Sure,
wrong
sure,
extremes,
sure.
but I feel like it's there's a difference between being motivated
Mhm.
and narcissistic.
Agree.
Like,
Yeah. No, 100% agree.
So I think it's more motivated. I
Right,
think
no,
you're-
you're absolutely
dreamer.
right. But like,
It's-
I'm
yeah.
cool with the term because it
Yeah.
almost makes me like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna go a little bit further. Then,
Yeah,
right. And
push the
so,
limits.
but we're talking about employing your command within its
Yeah.
capabilities. So, again, you have to have a plan, and you have to, again, looking back at your the first two steps is knowing yourself and knowing your team, right? And
Mhm.
so if you know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, then you can say, all right, this is what we're really good at, and here's what we're going to do. So the first thing is like know your limitations,
Yes.
right? And so like really good example for my business is we service over 250 kids in the Lake County area. I've had several parents come to me and say, hey, look, my daughter's got, pick a limiting like behavioral disorder.
Right.
So really bad social anxiety or whatever it could be. It could be anything. It could be a medical issue. It
Right.
could be my
Right.
daughter's in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
You need to know your limitations. And so
Yes.
you're not talking about excluding. What
But
you're
it's-
talking about is knowing, am I really
Am I making that
doing
person's
you a
life
favor?
worse? Right. Am I actually making things worse?
Right. And
Yeah.
that was a really hard thing for me to learn because
Yeah.
I believe that
We can do
we
anything.
do
We can
the
achieve
best that we
anything.
can
Yeah.
for these kids and
Correct.
that we're the best place for these kids.
Yeah.
And the hard truth is we're not always.
Right.
And I think that's really what understanding your capabilities are and getting your team to buy into that, right? And because
Yeah.
they, my teachers, my directors are like the most caring,
Yes.
sweetest, most empathetic people
Yes.
on earth,
Yes.
and they want to make sure every single child is taken care of.
Yeah.
And it's hard to relay that, you know, sometimes we're not the best,
Correct.
and we need to know that.
But so what I will bounce back though. So I seem like
Yeah, no.
like I'm agreeing with you, but just also too to like try and frame it of like when you say, hey, in this situation we're not the best.
Mhm.
To me,
Mhm.
that is what makes you the best. Is saying, hey, we're the best at
It's
this.
amazing the
which
response that
if
we
we're
get.
you know what I'm saying, if we're gonna be the best at this, there's no way we'd be the best at
Right.
that or that.
Right.
And even and I look back at you know how much I was afraid when Team IBB started growing. I was
Mhm.
afraid of saying, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, you know, you should really talk to Gary. That's Gary's special. You know, like I know a ton about it, but like Gary's the guy for that, or
So you hit
Reed's
on
the guy. You know what I mean? So like
You hit on it. So
you
that's
know,
number
like,
two
and-
of my point on knowing your
Yeah.
capabilities is, you know, you don't just say no. What can you do for them? What direction can you point that family in,
Correct.
that client in? What direction, like, you can still help that family.
having the connections of the experts
Correct.
that they need.
Correct.
Yeah. So
And so, like, you know, I always like to make sure that, you know, when we look at, you know, an application and then we do a tour and everything else and we see the interactions, and if we decide that we're not in the best interest of that child,
Mhm.
we're going to say no. However,
we're gonna
here's what we have for you. And we have these services, you know, within the county. We have a great relationship with this agency. We have,
awesome.
you know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the response that we get is great.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
it's
cool.
hey, you know, I appreciate your honesty. You're clearly not in it for a paycheck.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, obviously the families want you to be there tomorrow, so they want you to make money, but
Right.
not
Right. Sure.
not due to
Sure.
their stuff.
But you know, there are places that will just
But-
take you, and then
You
in
know-
2 weeks you're mad because now they're kicking
Mhm.
you out with no recourse because they can't deal with it.
Right.
Well, no kidding. You're not
Yeah.
the best place for
Yeah.
that child.
Yeah.
So, and again,
I
and
could've told
that's
you that,
and again, that's a lesson that we've learned
It's-
along the way.
And I feel like that, but too, that you're talking about leadership, personality, and then also too, there's a maturity.
Yeah.
That, you know, like even if, you know, and I always say like, no, the day you start breathing oxygen, you're a leader. Because somewhere along the line, someone's looking at you for, you know, inspiration or an example. You know what I'm saying? Like, even, you know, think about with our kids, like, our kids are the number one leaders in our lives because that, like,
makes
instantly
all my
could change.
decisions.
Dude, it's just crazy. I remember the first time I held JJ, and I was like, internally, I was having a
Yeah.
huge struggle because people are like, well, you won't care so much. You won't care so much about business. You won't care. And, like, and it's not so much, it's not that I don't care about, I still care about my business a ton, and I was just worried that I wouldn't care at all. You know what I mean? Like, but I remember the first time I held him, like, the not even trying, like, the thought that popped in my head was I have to do more.
Right.
I have to do a
Right.
million times more.
Right.
So, like, you know, it just, the whole, you know, in that moment, like, JJ was teaching me something and all that, so, but,
That's such a
you
good
know,
perspective.
you know, and so anybody can learn anything from, everyone's a leader as long as they're alive, you know what I mean,
Right,
basically. But, the mature, like, it takes so, and dude, talk about daycare.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just throw the infant into the toddler room.
Right.
You don't just throw the
No, you're
toddler.
100%
like,
right.
There's a transition period. Are we right? You know.
Right.
But
And
so
you,
like
you know your capabilities, you know
Yeah.
your limitations.
Yeah.
So your capabilities is the sum of your strengths and your limitations.
Yeah.
I don't really like to say weaknesses. I like to say limitations. Like why
Yes.
are you limited,
Yes.
right? And so
there are no weaknesses. Just
So-
slight
right,
limitations.
right.
Yeah.
so that's your capability. You know,
Yeah.
like you put those your strengths and your limitations together. That's your capability. And so then the really interesting part is that what you want? Does that align with your vision?
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't, how do you get there? How do you train? How do you, what equipment do you need? What tools do you need? Do you need more people? Do you need different people? Do you need, all of those questions,
Right.
and, you organize all that and you say, okay, let's make a plan to get to where, to expand our capabilities or modify our capabilities.
Gotcha. Evolve.
Evolve, right,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And I think that's super important to do, because in any business, you know, or at least any service, really any business, like, you're based on society, right? And
Right.
so if
Oh, dude,
society's
yeah.
evolving, then you have to evolve
Yeah,
with
you
it.
know, you know, the telemarketers now, or like, I know we'll get like a fax someone's faxing us to try and sell us something.
Right.
It's like,
Really?
like,
Right.
like, have you been outside? Like just have you, like, and maybe they're stuck they're locked in their
Yeah.
grandma's basement or something.
Yeah,
I don't know,
right.
but, yeah, but no, I think that, yeah, you can't just depend on what worked last time.
Sure.
You have to always make sure that,
Right. And I think it's a
you
good
know,
strategy just to keep you on your toes, right?
Yes.
And so if you know, maybe it's once a quarter, maybe it's once a year, you as a team look at, all right, what's our capabilities?
Right.
Are we happy with that? So what kind of year did we have? What kind of quarter did we have? What's our goals? Is our current capabilities in line with how we're progressing? If it's not, then you make changes or whatever. And again, you're probably doing a lot of this. But again, I go back to the conscious decision, writing it down, like talking about it, I think really, really helps.
And you hit it on like just the comment you made about like, are we happy with
Mhm.
this? And especially talking about like Marine Corps, like, you're not happy, good, like this kind of like good, like you're not here to be happy, you're here to, but then obviously that's like, sorry, I'm like cliche,
You're good,
like,
yeah, no.
But I feel like our generation we do have had the ability to take a step back and say like, okay, yeah, I'm successful, I did this, I have a business, or I have a cool car,
Whatever's
like,
important to you.
whatever,
Right,
talking about the wants and the needs.
Right.
But I feel like we actually put emphasis on happiness, and like that's been like really.
It's different.
Talking about with.
Well, happiness in a work environment or in
Correct.
a professional environment versus home.
And I feel like it's just like it's purpose. So like it's not, like I said, you and I both in the industries we're in, the businesses we're running, wasn't, rewind the clock to where, even teenagers, we weren't really like,
Right.
this is gonna be my thing. But I feel like it gives us purpose, and the purpose drives us being happy. Like, we're never
Happiness,
satisfied, but we are,
Right.
We are happy. So I guess, you're talking about know yourself in the first one. Know the people around. Like,
Your
if
team, your people.
if you're not taking care of you and you're not taking care of people around you, like, you'll never be happy. Like, I think
100%.
that it's.
And really,
you know.
I mean, taking care of you first is, so incredibly important.
Yeah. It
Because
seems selfish, but it's the opposite.
right,
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
complete opposite. It's so selfless
Yes.
that it seems selfish, and it's crazy talk,
Yes.
right? But if you're not happy, how can you possibly give a
You,
care about anybody else?
Yep.
You know, and I think that once you understand that, it's real quick. You're like, oh, this makes sense. This machine can work because I'm taking the time for myself. I'm, whatever it is that makes you happy, right? And so you do that, and then you focus on your people around you, and now all of a sudden you got this machine going.
Right.
Now you take this machine, you say, all right, what's my capabilities? And we're going to operate within those capabilities. Because as soon as you start straying outside, and now all of a sudden it's a lot more stress,
Yep.
and you're doing this and you're doing that, and now all of a sudden your people, then you gotta circle all the way back to number 2, because now your people aren't happy,
Right.
because they're being asked to do things that they don't have the tools for.
Right.
Now they're not happy, and so now you're not happy
Yep.
because they're not
Nobody-
happy, and
clients
now
are
you're
happy,
starting
nobody-
all over.
Nobody's happy.
Right? And so
Yeah.
like that's kind of like the full circle of 1, 2, and 3 of what I
Yeah.
try and employ all the time.
Yeah, awesome. So that, and to that remind, TG Spark is a company. It's actually the gentleman that I met randomly on a plane that said, you need a brand, man. And that's where this whole like IBB thing came from. Like, he helped us create it. And my buddy, other buddy is also, he's been helping us on like the social media, the marketing, the business
Right.
development, all that stuff behind the scenes. But I remember when we were talking, Gary and myself, it was a couple years ago, when this, the IBB thing was like finally, like, was actually becoming a thing, I guess.
Right.
And we're like, oh yeah, we want to do this, we want to do that. and they were both like, time out. I was like, you guys are great at X,
Right.
and you guys seem to just want to do Y. We're like, yeah, Y is awesome, Y is great.
Right.
But it was, and the example just, like, do you think LeBron would be great at soccer? Oh, LeBron would be fantastic at soccer. Okay.
Right.
Do you think he'll ever be as great as soccer,
Right.
no matter how hard he works at it, as he is in basketball? Oh, no. So he's like, so you're LeBron,
Right.
don't play soccer,
Right.
go play basketball.
Right.
So
Right.
they're just kind of, but it, in two, like so little scholars, you're getting, you have more so you're doing more of what works.
Correct.
Versus like, and there's been times where I've like, dabbled in other like, business ventures,
Right,
or like
right.
tried some things out, and and then you
Well,
get
look.
you get back to what you're good at, and you like start you like actually like,
Sure.
oh,
So
I
so
miss
look,
you
on
so
a, on a
much, you know?
personal level, I
So-
mean, whether it's, so, I mean, you know a little bit about investing, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
it's always good to diversify, right?
Correct.
And so, goes back to your number rule, the 80-20 rule, whatever,
Your stupid numbers.
Yeah, I do too. Like, I do like to experiment because I like to spark interest, right? And so, I've done stuff outside of Little Scholars that, I have a little bit of interest in, so I
Yep.
put a little bit of time into
Yep.
it. But I think it's important to say, all right, Little Scholars, we're gonna stay within our capabilities here.
Yes.
And then this
Yes.
project over here, maybe I'll see what
Right.
the capabilities are there, and it either
Mhm.
works or it doesn't, and then you adjust.
Right.
But I don't think that means that you can't do other stuff. Like, it doesn't mean like as a person, like for example, like you're a dad, you're a husband, you're a business, like all that kind of stuff. Like, you couldn't just pick one.
Right.
Like, is that even possible? Like,
I
it's
don't
not for me.
No.
Like, you
no.
couldn't. Like,
Yeah.
they collectively build who you are.
Yes.
And so, just because you're understanding your capabilities doesn't mean that you can't train for and expand your capabilities.
Right.
I talked about like, well, what's really important to us? Do we want to be there? So
Yeah.
I'm sure when JJ was born, like, well, it's really important to me to learn how to be a dad.
Yeah.
Right. And so like
Oh
you
my gosh.
train yourself, leading up to it and
Yeah.
everything else. But like
Yeah.
you're training yourself, or more likely he's training you how
Oh,
to be a
totally.
parent.
Yeah.
And so again, that's expanding
Yeah.
your own
Yeah.
capabilities. So you can always expand, you can always try other stuff, but once you get to that point where you know what works, like, it's important to stay within that until you make that decision to expand that
Expand.
capabilities and train yourself and your team how to do that.
Yeah. And so, when you are looking to expand, like, is it something it's not so much like people like companies will do pilots, or they'll
Mhm.
do trial runs and things like. You feel it's important that you on kind of in your like the spare time you don't have, right?
Right.
But is it important that you kind of explore that before you bring other people along? Like if you're saying like, hey, this is kind of my own thing. I'm piquing my curiosity, and I'm this might work for us, but like you're not gonna say, hey, everybody at Little Scholars location A,
Mm-hmm.
stop what you're doing and come check out.
Right,
We're
right,
gonna we're gonna go into personal training now. Or-
Yeah,
I don't-
I'm
is-
pretty
is
sure that would not be very good long term for us,
Right.
or even short term.
Right.
No,
Obviously, I'm just
I
using an
think-
example.
right,
Do you-
right.
Like, do you find that people?
I think it has to be calculated.
Yeah.
I think you have to do it with a plan.
Yes.
Now that's me, and that's my organization, because we've tried. We've done stuff like I love that especially my leadership team. They have amazing ideas, and
Yeah.
some of our best practices and policies have come from those ideas.
Yes.
And it's really frustrating to them now, because they come to me with an idea, or we're talking, on a conference call, or we're together, and an idea comes up, and I say, all right, write it down, tell me how we're gonna get there, what we need to do to get there, all those kind of things.
Right.
And that's frustrating, because you gotta work for it now.
Yeah.
But anytime we've ever done that, it's become super successful.
Oh yeah.
And
It's
the
actually
stuff that
thought
we
out,
just
yeah, it's
like,
calculated, it's
all right,
thought out,
well,
yeah.
we're gonna start, I don't know, we're gonna start serving, high fructose corn syrup, right away, instead,
Right.
because we wanna get these kids super sugary,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because then they're really gonna crash hard, and they're gonna take great naps, like, all right.
Yeah, that's a terrible idea.
That's a
Like,
terrible idea, first
Yeah.
of all, so let's just jump right into it, you know what I mean? Like,
Like, how does this play out? Okay.
Right,
yeah.
right. And so you wouldn't just jump into that. You would say, all right, well, this is the idea.
Yeah.
This is the expected outcome. What do we need to do to have the capabilities to make that work? And then you say, should we move forward or should we not?
And you're identifying, is this a short-term want that's going to derail a long-term need?
That's a very
I
good
feel
point.
like, like, they'll have great naps today,
Right.
but like
But
we're ruining
long-term,
their lives.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
like,
Long
so-
term, they're not going to go to sleep at night, and so they're going
Yeah.
to come in the morning. And when we do
And-
most of our learning, they're
yeah.
going to be exhausted and they're not going to retain as much.
Yeah.
So maybe that's not a great idea.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. Awesome, man. Well, anything else that you would want to add?
Not right now.
To be continued. Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us for part 3 of the hashtag IBB Top 3 trilogy. And until next time,
Stay burn proof.
let's